Hello, my beautiful people. Welcome to our channel. I am Woven, and on this channel, we talk all things lifestyle, travel, finance, and sometimes tradition. And I have not done tradition in a while. I apologize, but it's on my priorities. And today, we're talking finance. We're looking at top mistakes people make in their 20s, in the 30s, in the 40s, and 50s. So, this video is quite inclusive, right, of all age groups. So please sit down, relax, and enjoy. Please do note this is in no way financial advice, and if you do require a financial advisor, please contact someone that is registered with the regulator. And if you're in Namibia, that'll be with NAMFISA. Now, let's look at our 20s, right? There's some top financial mistakes we make in our 20s, knowingly or unknowingly, right? Because you're thinking, no, I'm still young, I'm only starting out. So, one, you don't have a proper savings in place, and then you do not invest while you're in your 20s because you're thinking, no, I'm still young, I don't earn enough to start saving or investing, because this is mostly where you have your entry level earnings, right? So you're just like, no, I'll start at a later stage. Now that's actually a mistake because you would want to develop the habit of saving while you still earn little so that when more comes, you actually have that habit in place already. So in your 20s, what you want to do is look at having your emergency fund in place. Guys, I cannot stress an emergency fund enough. Recently, my car was just like every time I park, by the time I return to the car, it's saying flat tire. So I would have to drive to a service station. And after 3 days, I'm like, no, man, something is not right. Turns out I had a tire puncture. There was a nail in my tire. Luckily, I then went over to one of the service providers. I was like, I need a new tire. I later found out I did not need a new tire after I purchased the tire. But the point I'm making here is I was quickly able to tap into my emergency savings without panicking and actually forking out one of those run flat tires so that I could, replace the one on the car. So that's the importance of an emergency saving fund. So in your 20s, what you want to do is save up 3 to 6 months of your expenses already. So when your expenses change, right, then you also adjust your emergency fund. But that's what you want to do in your 20s already. And then number two, after you have saved enough, you start investing. You want to consider investing, right? So with this, I have a client that doesn't necessarily have a problem with saving. But what we found is then when we sat down, so I do financial coaching. So when we sat down, I found that she has about $376,000 just chilling in her bank account because that's where she saves. That's because she doesn't know better, right? So the habit is good, but unfortunately, a savings account or a checking account is meant to transact and not to grow your money. So you want to keep minimal funds in there. So after you have put your emergency fund in place, you have enough savings, you want to start investing. Now, when you start investing, your money starts working for you. Your money starts creating value. But what you find, especially in the market, is a lot of us are only exposed to a money market unit trust or your checking account. But that's mostly just for your emergency. You might want to consider only keeping your emergency funds in there because the money market is meant to provide liquidity for you, so easy access. But in terms of growth and interest rates, there are actually other instruments in the market, there are other funds in the market that could actually provide better value, and that is where you invest. So that's your 20s. Now, let's look at our 30s, our beautiful 30s. I'm in my 30s, that's why I'm smiling. This age group is tricky, right? Because you're not just starting out, but you're also not quite there yet, right? So some of the mistakes we make in our 30s is now you have disorganized savings because you have not been saving in your 20s, so now you're scrapping around. Because in this age, in and around this age, is where things start to stabilize. You're settling down. Some people are starting families, you're getting married, you're acquiring property. So there's quite a bit of responsibilities that are competing for your earnings. So as such, you then tend to have disorganized savings. So this month you were able to save, say for instance, a 3-4 thousand, but next month, because there are so many competing responsibilities, you don't manage to save. So your saving is very disorganized. You also don't have an emergency fund in place. The other mistake we make in our 30s is buying flashy products, flashy items, right? Because in your 30s, you feel like, okay, no, now I've got a bit of earnings. I've probably gotten a promotion by now. I'm no longer in my entry level job. So I deserve some nice things. You know, suddenly your Polo TSI is no longer good enough. You trade it in to get a BMW, right? Suddenly, all the girlies, I know we all buying Louis Vuitton Never Full because that is a corporate girl's uniform for the guys. Suddenly you now have a baddie, your girlfriend. You've always been wanting this type of girlfriend, but unfortunately she just has a certain lifestyle where the Alma BB Louis Vuitton is part of her staples in her wardrobe, right? So your girlfriend itself is just a flashy product. I'm sorry, I'm coming for the people in the 30s, but I need to. For the guys, you now start frequenting the coast. What is that bottle? It's a Hennessy VSOP. Every weekend is just you. So in your 30s, you start looking flashy. And that's a mistake we make, right? So instead of maybe paying off your Polo TSI and just driving it 1-2 more years after you've paid it off, you trade it in. Because now Woven drives what is this white SUV? It's Tiguan. Hmm? Now you also want to look the part. So, what you want to do in your 30s, especially if you've already formed your savings base and you're investing, you want to start maximizing your investments, right? But if you have not started saving in your 20s, it's never too late. Start in your 30s, say, I am going to be budgeting properly. 20% of my earnings is going to my savings and investing, because in and around this time frame, or in and around this age group, it's also a time where you start acquiring property. You're buying an apartment here, you're buying a house there, right? So I'm not saying don't buy your flashy products, but don't buy flashy products at the expense of your investments, at the expense of your savings, right? Are we agreeing? 30s, I just had to come for us there, because in your 30s, because you're getting into it, right? You have not just made it, but things are starting to look up. Suddenly, vacation is now on the cards every year. You browse the wine menu with keen interest, like with genuine interest, so you can afford a little bit more. But what we tend to do is we splurge. But what I'm saying is, sometimes it's a mistake, especially if it's at the expense of your savings and building your investments. Now, let's look at our 40s, my 40-year-olds. This age group is tricky. This one is tricky. Your 30s, you're still safe. You're still in and around the in-betweens. But at the age of 40, you and your peers, we can actually see, if we look close enough, we can see who was playing and who was actually working, right? You can see who was building, who was saving, and who was playing. So now in your 40s, because you want to look like your peers, but you have not done the groundwork, right, in your 30s, you start getting into debt. The girls are going on a girls' trip to Thailand. Social media has brought us under a lot of pressure because you get to see what your peers are doing. And comparison, although human, it is the thief of all joy, right? So because you're not comparing to your peers who were at university together, we more or less started working at the same time. However, your peers have now acquired their houses and they have their cars as well. Life is, the children are in private schools or just getting a good education and they live a decent life, which is obviously subjective. So what you then do, because you're trying to catch up for what you didn't do in your 30s, you start getting into debt. The girls are going on a trip, and because you don't want to be left behind, you do not have a sinking fund, you get a credit card to fund that Thailand trip with the girls, right? You start getting into loans to build back home, right? Whenever I talk about building back home, I know you guys are probably side eyeing me, but I'll start building in due time so that I don't get into debt. You're now buying more house than you can afford because you saw that your peers now are living in academia, they are in Kleine Coupe, they are in Ausblick, they're in Eros. You go and you get a loan from the bank that can give you the highest amount just so that you can look the part. But I'm just here to tell you, if you're in your 40s and you sort of missed your savings and investing steps and just doing the right thing, and you currently have disorganized investments and savings, you can still start, right? It's never too late to start. So, one, you want to then start very quickly, accelerate your savings and investments, and then only you look at committing in terms of long term plans. I was watching a YouTube video the other day. This lady she lives quite well, but also quite honestly. And she was like, I'm only buying my first apartment at the age of 50. That's because that's when she felt ready to actually have such a huge and long term obligation at the age of 50. So, again, do not compare, but some of the mistakes we make when we're in our 40s is one, unorganized investments, and then we are raking up on debt to catch up or to look like our peers. Right, now let's get to our 50s. These are our parents' 50s, 60s. And I need to call out our parents, right? And I've seen this trend, especially within the teaching community, and this is a mistake we make, where people resign so that they can tap into their pension fund savings. That is a mistake you're making. Because at the age of 60, you're retiring and you're fairly young, right? For your age, you still have a lot of energy. So chances are you still need the same type of salary or amount to sustain that life for the next at least 10 to 15 years. Because even at the age of 70, you're still fairly active. So the mistake we make is because we have not had the chance to save and invest, save up to actually buy property, we then resign. Our parents are busy resigning. People in their 50s are busy resigning to tap into their retirement savings. If you're going into retirement or if you're resigning again, feel free to contact me. Here is my email address. It's woven@outlook.com so that we can possibly look at how to invest your funds, or if you want to make use of those funds, just for us to look at how you could possibly make use of the funds in the best possible way. And also, if you're not using all of your funds, we can look at how do we invest the remainder. Right? So please feel free to contact me. My elders, I am sorry, but I need to be frank here. They're tapping into their retirement savings, one, to build their house on the Rosafat or in the north. They're using their retirement savings to build their houses in the north, which you should have done while you are busy working in your 30s, in your 40s, not to tap into your savings or your pension savings. Then they use those funds to buy cattle. Especially, I am coming from my Herero people, Shuambo people. You use those savings to buy cattle to start farming, but even the farming is not even profitable. Number three, they use the pension savings to buy Land Cruisers. Beautiful people, your savings, your retirement savings are meant to sustain you in your years of retirement. So what we tend to do is a lot of the people in their 50s, 55, and just before retirement, they resign, tap into their savings, and completely deplete it. Sometimes they invest in businesses that are not profit making, and before you know it, 1 to 3 years, the business is nowhere to be found. Namibia is one of the most fortunate countries. We have a system in place where the government actually has a pension fund grant, for your pensioners. That's not common in other countries. But this also places a burden on the government, right, to ensure that there's a certain level of at least living. Because now imagine how many are we that are dependent on the government grant. So your pension fund, your retirement fund savings are meant to sustain you in your years of retirement so that your quality of life does not drop. Now, because we have depleted we have tapped into our retirement savings by resigning and then going back into employment for 5, 6 years. I don't know how much you think you can earn in that period of time. Guys, please share this with your parents. You then have very little to sustain you in your years of retirement. That's why you see that Uncle XYZ retired, but 5 years later, he looks like he has never worked. He had never worked a single day in their life. They're now aging faster than they're supposed to. That's because we tapped into our savings, our retirement savings, before retirement. So I urge my beautiful people in your 50s, parents in your 50s, just hold on. Start saving if there's something you want to do. Like right now, if you want to buy a house, if you want to renovate, GIPF now, especially for the civil servant, allows you or gives you that pension fund backed home loan, either to buy your house or to buy or renovate your home, right? But that is within reason, and also the interest rates. Maybe this is a video I should do in another video. But the mistake our parents are making is resigning, tapping into their retirement savings, and then going back to employment after they've depleted their funds. So, in a nutshell, in your 20s, I'm sorry, I went off on our I went off on our parents, but I had to because it's quite common. Now, to sum it up, in your 20s, mistake number one, not saving, not investing. In your 30s, you're also buying flashy products. In your 40s, what people tend to do is recap debt. In our 50s, we're tapping into our retirement savings before retirement. Some of those mistakes are mistakes we can avoid. I hope you guys enjoyed this video from me, Woven. I'll see you next time.